From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
An astonishing recovery. Weeks after being unable to move or speak, an Arizona college student talks about the ordeal she went through while on vacation in Spain.
What is your citizenship status? It's a new question from the Trump administration that has sparked a national debate. Now it's up to the courts to give an answer.
Forget about escaping the heat this holiday week. The thermometer is about to warm up to a dangerous level.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Victoria Valenzuela.
And I'm Raneem Hamed. Thank you for joining us. A month ago, she woke up paralyzed and thousands of miles away from home.
Tonight, a college student is here in Arizona and working hard to get back to a normal life. Reporter Nicole Hernandez went to the Barrow Neurological Institute to hear from Kara Dunn about her recovery.
University of Arizona student Kara Dunn was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome while traveling in Spain last month. She was rushed to a foreign hospital to be treated for the rare condition, which caused Dunn's immune system to attack her nervous system, quickly paralyzing her. But the syndrome wasn't her only obstacle. Dunn says being treated in a foreign country changed her perspective. Kara Dunn was in Spain for 3 days before she became ill.
I think the biggest part was the communication barrier to begin with, because I was paralyzed and I couldn't talk, and so I would try to tell them things, but I couldn't. And they like to say, "Kara, I don't understand you," and walk out of the room.
Within 2 days, Kara's mom and brother were at her bedside, helping her communicate and looking for answers.
That was awful. It's a nightmare. You know, your family member is 6,000 miles away, and they're in a hospital and you can't do anything. You're just stuck.
But as soon as Ryan Dunn arrived, he started using his connections as a medical student to help translate for and diagnose his sister.
Thank you, Ryan. I can say with full confidence that my older brother saved my life.
Kara is now in neurological rehabilitation to regain full movement and feeling, but it hasn't been easy.
As I was growing up, my mom always said a quote, "Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right."
And Kara believed she could. A GoFundMe page was set up to help get her back to the U.S. safely and continue treatment.
She has been receiving at least 3 hours of therapy a day, including physical therapy to work on walking. As you saw her come in here, she's made huge strides.
While transitioning from hospital buildings after the event, Dunn expressed how happy she was to be outside and feel the sun again. She is set to return home on Friday and plans on using her experience as a patient to help in her medical studies this August. Nicole Hernandez, Cronkite News.
The Arizona Association of Realtors wants to stop lawmakers from increasing the state sales tax. Reporter Amanda Mason traveled to the Capitol to see the thousands of signatures they submitted to the Secretary of State's office.
The creators of Protect Arizona Taxpayers Act said that this initiative would protect Arizonans and their families from a huge tax burden. Protect Arizona Taxpayers Act filed petitions they have been collecting since March. Their goal is to ban all service taxes, which includes things like child care, haircuts, home repairs, real estate, health care, and funerals.
We're here for a fair tax policy. We believe firmly that it is important for Arizonans to not be overtaxed or to be double taxed and to have a strong economy. And that is important to us.
The reason that we put together this petition, that this act, is to protect Arizonans, the folks that can afford it the least.
This is a record-breaking amount of petitions that have been signed, 400,000, and there's 72 of these boxes.
We're looking to protect people on fixed income, the disabled, those who earn low and moderate incomes. The time is right to act.
On the ProtectTaxpayers.com website, you can calculate how much sales tax on services would cost you annually. But opponents say without a service tax, this could cut the state's budget, leaving less for K-12 education and the teacher pay increases. President of Arizona Federation for Teachers, Ralph Quintana, says that in order to increase revenue, we have to increase taxes.
But to say that no increases in taxes of any sort, that's not realistic to the funding needs of Arizona public. We have needs, and we're not meeting those needs. So I'm in in opposition to anybody in any group that says we don't need to increase revenue.
The Citizens for Fair Tax Policy are hoping to get their initiative in the ballot in November. They won the last initiative they tackled regarding real estate transfer taxes by 76%, according to the Arizona Republic. In the broadcast center, Amanda Mason, Cronkite News.
2 days ago, Mexican voters went to the polls and overwhelmingly elected a president who has been called the perfect foil to President Donald Trump. But the only fireworks this week are going to be in the skies. As Danny Coble reports from our Washington bureau, the Mexican ambassador to the U.S. said today that he expects our two countries will continue to get along.
Ambassador Jerónimo Gutiérrez told a Hudson Institute audience today that the U.S. and Mexico face a number of challenges, but the only way to deal with those issues is to sit down at the table and talk them through.
We need to have the same conversation between the United States, Mexico, and Central America.
That conversation may have begun as early as Sunday during President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador's victory speech to a cheering crowd.
With the government of the United States, we shall try to find a relationship of friendship and cooperation for development.
The civil tone continued Monday after a phone call between President Donald Trump and Obrador. Trump told reporters that he had a great 30-minute phone call with the president-elect in which they discussed the major issues between their countries.
We had a lot of good conversation. I think the relationship would be a very good one. We'll see what happens.
Gutiérrez, who said when Trump took office that the country's relationship was at a critical point, now feels more optimistic.
In a better shape, and I do think that we do have a chance still to construct a better relationship.
But he acknowledges challenges taking off issues like trade, immigration, border security, and renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement. In Washington, Danny Coble, Cronkite News.
A growing list of Democrats want to abolish the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. At least 9 current members of Congress, including Arizona's Raul Grijalva, want the agency shut down. The issue has picked up steam after last week's primary victory by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York. She beat heavy favorite Joe Crowley, and part of her platform was to get rid of the agency. The idea comes after the zero-tolerance policy that separated some families at the border. Tonight, the Trump administration is looking at rescinding a set of policies that encourage schools to take a person's race into account to encourage diversity in admissions. This comes as the Department of Justice investigates whether Harvard University discriminates against Asian Americans in its admissions process. The move would get rid of documents that laid out the legal recommendations and guidelines for schools that wanted to promote diversity. The administration says this gives schools the federal government's blessing to take a race-neutral approach to the students they consider for admission.
The Trump administration wants to include a question about people's citizenship on the 2020 census form, but that plan hit a roadblock in federal court today, as Pat Pobletti reports from our Washington bureau.
U.S. District Judge Jesse Furman said today that the lawsuit that 18 states filed against the Trump administration over its census plan can move forward. New York Attorney General Barbara Underwood said Furman found strong evidence that the White House acted in bad faith. She said Furman ordered the Commerce Department to turn over information on how the decision to demand citizenship status was made. Trump administration officials said in March that the question is needed to widen the insufficient scope of the census to better protect minority communities from racially discriminatory election laws.
We've contained this question that's provided data that's necessary for the Department of Justice to protect voters and specifically to help us better comply with the Voting Rights Act.
But lawmakers at the time, like Mesa Vice Mayor David Luna, were not buying that line of reasoning, saying that the inclusion of the question will discourage immigrants from participating.
The Constitution calls for persons. Persons are individuals that live in your community. What we're afraid of is that if a person is required to put whether he or she is a citizen, that may hamper the process and the collection of the data necessary.
Activists fear that an incorrect count will dilute voting power and deny needed government funds to minority communities. While Underwood welcomed today's action, it is just another step in a long process. Furman gave the Commerce Department, which oversees the census, until July 23rd to produce additional documents, and said he hoped to begin a trial by the end of October. In Washington, Pat Pobletti, Cronkite News.
For many of us, the 4th of July is associated with food and fireworks. But for some, tomorrow will take on a lot more meaning as they become U.S. citizens. The mayor of Mesa shared with reporter Emily Richardson why he believes holding a naturalization ceremony on the country's birthday is one of the most patriotic things one could do.
2018 is the 4th consecutive year that the city of Mesa will be holding a naturalization ceremony during their celebration of Freedom Festival. With 325 people from 58 different countries, Mayor John Giles says it is their biggest 4th of July naturalization event yet.
I promise there won't be a dry eye in the crowd. It's just very inspiring when these folks stand up, raise their arm to the square, and promise to be loyal United States citizens.
The 4th of July naturalization ceremony is one of Mayor John Giles' favorite events. He says there is nothing more moving than watching people who love America finally become citizens.
I encourage everyone, even if you don't know anybody else in the room. It's a very patriotic event. It's a very inspiring event. It's a great way to celebrate the 4th of July.
Manuel Gutiérrez, who helps immigrants with their citizenship applications, agrees the ceremony is a beautiful event.
How much joy they have, and they sometimes get tearful, with their families, because it's the happy end of the story that story.
People who want to become citizens must be at least 18 years old, be able to speak, write, and read English, be lawful permanent residents for 5 years or more, and pay $725 for the entire process.
Below the 100% of the poverty line or receive mean-tested benefits, they can apply for a fee waiver. So they can apply to become citizens even if they don't have the $725.
Why do you want to progress from being a legal permanent resident to a citizen? It's patriotism.
Mayor Giles also believes the ceremony is a great way to celebrate the diversity of his city. Their ceremony will be held at 6:30 in the Mesa Convention Center, and the city's celebration of freedom will be in downtown Mesa from 6 to 10 p.m. In the Broadcast Center, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
President Trump has ordered that flags be lowered to half staff immediately. Initially, the White House denied the request made on Monday to honor the victims from the Capitol Gazette shooting.
Once the president heard about the mayor's specific request to him, he fulfilled the mayor's request and ordered that the flags be lowered.
The mayor of Annapolis asked the president that the flags be lowered to honor the 5 journalists killed in the shooting. The flags will be lowered until sunset on all public buildings and military posts. For years, drones were a novel gadget that people could play with.
But as society moves forward, drones will be the future of many industries. Coming up on Cronkite News, drone technology turns the book into a controller and the classroom into a field.
Plus, making history on the ice, what makes one Arizona Coyote different from any hockey player to ever come before him.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles. In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
Due to wildfire danger, drones are being used as an alternative to fireworks in some Arizona cities.
And they're being used for aerial views, shooting commercials, movies, and more. Our reporter Allison Snell saw how students are taking advantage of this drone technology.
I got a behind-the-scenes look on what it takes to fly a drone once you get outside of the classroom and onto the field. That loud sound comes from when you power up a drone. With technology evolving and new tools ready for use, you can get more innovative. Mark Taylor uses his passion to teach students how to take the controller into their own hands, but not until after they sat in the classroom.
You need some classroom time. We need some theory, the reason why. We need to come out and practice some of the mechanics.
Practice can make perfect, but you can also get creative.
It's just moving something on a little slant invokes the creativity. Having the drone come from behind the tree to reveal the soccer match.
From takeoff to landing, it's a sky-high view.
Every day we learn something new and a different way of seeing the world. It's an incredible and very humbling experience.
Learning the basics for Taylor turned into a new way of life, and he hopes to teach others to feel the same way.
Good grief. What other industry lets you fly toys for a living?
It's important to keep in mind that drone laws are constantly evolving, and if you're interested in owning a drone here in Arizona, it must be registered to the FAA. In downtown Phoenix, Allison Snell, Cronkite News.
Are you planning on catching a 4th of July show across the valley tomorrow?
If so, it might still be triple-digit heat when the fireworks begin. So why not just invite some of friends over and stay inside? Coming up next, a preview of the greatest fireworks in the nation that you can watch right here on Arizona PBS.
We're currently sitting at 108 degrees, but stay tuned because we're going to have some changes later in the week.
I'm Matt Berry, ESPN Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up. Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
Scientists are discovering a simpler way for people with diabetes to take their insulin. A pill could replace the needle diabetics need to administer their medicine. The pill would be easier and less painful, but scientists are concerned that the insulin could lose its effect as it goes through the digestive system. Another study of liquid insulin tested on lab rats showed glucose levels dropped nearly 40% within 2 hours. Scientists say that more research and testing needs to be done before they can begin testing on humans. They expect the pill to be ready within the next 3 to 5 years.
Hawaii is set to become the first state to issue a specific sunscreen ban. The reason? Chemicals that harm coral reefs. Oxybenzone and octinoxate are the chemicals that cause damage in sunscreen. The bill to ban them passed in May, and Hawaii's governor is expected to sign it this week. The ban would take effect in 2021, and companies that sell those products with those chemicals are expected to reformulate or stop the sales. People can still purchase these sunscreens containing the chemicals by prescription.
Prepare yourself for an excessive heat watch across the valley. We could get up to 113 or 114 degrees this Thursday and Friday. The heat wave is not just hitting Arizona. Nearly 60 million people are under a heat advisory. People can expect to see temperatures exceed 95 degrees Fahrenheit. This advisory extends from central Virginia to eastern Maine. At least one person has died and 2 other deaths are under investigation. With the excessive heat warning in place, several cities around Arizona have canceled their fireworks show. Williams, Flagstaff, Cave Creek, Prescott Valley, and Show Low have all canceled their displays. For Cave Creek, this is the first time it's been canceled in 24 years. All of the cities plan to continue their other scheduled activities for the 4th.
With the 4th of July tomorrow, be sure to keep cool in this excessive heat.
Jordan Daphnis is in the Weather Center with what you should expect for your holiday. Jordan?
We're currently looking at 108 degrees, which may actually feel like a cool down compared to what we're going to see later on in the week. Now, taking a look across the country, we've got 82 up in Bismarck, 79 in New York, and on the West Coast, 75 in San Francisco, 72 in Los Angeles. So if you're lucky enough to be taking a holiday getaway to California, you're gonna run into some beautiful temperatures. Now for us here in Arizona for our 4th of July holiday, we've got 107 in Phoenix, 98 up in Page, 97 down in Douglas, and 106 in Lake Havasu City. So it's gonna be very warm for us here tomorrow. So stay cool out there, but have fun. Like I said, 107 tomorrow for your 4th of July holiday. Then we're gonna jump up this weekend, Friday and Saturday. We'll see the low teens. Now, we won't see much relief until next Tuesday. We'll be seeing a high of 102. Can you believe it? In the Weather Center, Jordan Daphnis.
If it's too hot outside for you tomorrow, just stay in and watch the fireworks on TV. Some of the top stars in the country will be a part of a Capitol 4th here on Arizona PBS. The annual event happens on the west lawn of the U.S. Capitol. John Stamos will host the show with musical guests Jimmy Buffett, the Beach Boys, the Temptations, and the National Symphony Orchestra. You can watch the show right here at 7 p.m. and it'll be replayed at 8:30.
The Arizona Coyotes have made history this NHL draft season.
They now have 2 English players on their roster. Next, see how the Bridge is adapting to life across the pond.
I like working for Cronkite News because it gives us the opportunity to find a different angle on the same stories that every other news outlet is covering across Arizona. As students, we have the opportunity to cover issues in all across the state of Arizona.
It gives me a good chance to sharpen my skills, improve my skills, learn the techniques in a newsroom and in the programs and teamwork and technology, getting me prepared for the real world. And at the same time, I think we do a great job, make some great stories, do great journalism for the city of Phoenix and the state of Arizona.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
The Coyotes wrapped up their development camp with their annual red-white game on Thursday. As our Madison Curley explains, prospect Liam Kirk's journey to the frozen pond of Arizona began across the pond in England.
The Arizona Coyotes made history in the 2018 NHL draft when they drafted Liam Kirk, the first player to train exclusively in England before his selection in the draft.
I dreamed about playing in the NHL, and that's always been a dream of mine. So, but you know, we both said that if you're working wherever you are, if you're working hard and you have the belief that you can do it.
Since the NHL started in 1917, 23 English-born players have made it to the league. But due to factors such as better exposure, coaching, and competition, players such as Coyotes forward Brendan Perlini left England to train elsewhere before entering the draft.
My parents just wanted to give me a better opportunity to come over and play and grow up in Canada and the States.
Brendan's older brother Brett, who played on the Great Britain national team this past year with Kirk, says ice time in England is limited.
Some kids growing up in Canada are on the ice every day, and we didn't have that opportunity. But we
found ways around that. I think it's actually very similar to a kid growing up in Arizona. There's probably not as many rinks. You have to find a way to work on your skills.
One big adjustment for Kirk that is common for all players coming over from Europe is the rinks here in the NHL are 15 feet narrower.
In England, it's a completely different game. There's bigger ice over there, a lot more skating and skill work, whereas over here is a little bit faster, a little more physical. And
Kirk says he's putting in work away from the ice to help him adjust to the NHL game.
Just getting a lot stronger a lot of the time in the gym off ice, just working on my strength and my endurance and all that.
Having an English player already in the organization helps Kirk feel more comfortable. And as Brendan reminded him, the hard work starts now. In Glendale, Madison Curley, Cronkite News.
This baby Maasai giraffe is just a week old. She was born at the Phoenix Zoo. Right now, she and mom Amara are bonding in the giraffe barn. It'll be a couple of weeks before the baby is ready to make her debut in the Savannah exhibit. The zoo will host a naming contest for its newest edition. Check out the Phoenix Zoo on social media to make your submissions.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on PBS NewsHour.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next NewsHour, Behind Rebel Lines, part 2 of our series on the war in Yemen, examining just who the U.S.-backed Saudi coalition is fighting on the ground. That's Tuesday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.